In this video, I'm going to talk about the concept of versioning. Now, for our products list that we have here, um, there's a number of reasons that might want to enable versioning. For example, somebody could go in and change the prices here either maliciously or accidentally, and I may want to get all of that back. So I don't want to have to go to backups or anything like that, or I may not even have backups. So, well, you should have backups, but in any case, you want to be able to easily revert back to previous versions, so you don't have to go to backups or things like that in order to restore the correct information or correct data on your list or library. Now, obviously, this is extremely important for documents. You want to keep versions of documents definitely. If somebody makes a mistake or deletes something, you'd like to be able to go back to the previous version. But this is very important for lists as well. And you do have the ability to have versioning for lists. So I'll show you how to enable that and how to use it. So if you go to list settings here, click on the versioning settings. Now we will ignore the content approval and draft item security sections here. This is if you're using content approval, it's a more kind of complicated next level subject, so we won't get into that. But really what we want to know is, do we want to create a version each time I edit the item in the list? Yes, I definitely want to create a new version. And what I have the option here of doing is setting the amount of versions that I want to keep. So if this is a list that's changing constantly, I may not want to keep every single version, which is what SharePoint will do by default. Um, but the problem with that is, especially if you're using documents, this will start to grow and grow and grow and take up a lot of space because SharePoint is keeping a separate copy of the item or of the document every single time. Um, so I'll say, yeah, we'll keep the last 50 versions only, so they're not taking up too much space. So I'll press OK. So I now have versioning enabled on this particular list. And I'm going to go in here and I'm going to edit the price of 1 liter of milk. So I'll change the cost price to $1.90. And I could have done that at the same time. I'll edit this again and I'll change the sales price to $2.10. And actually you can already see here it's displaying what version we're currently looking at. Now that probably won't mean very much to us right now because we don't know what versions, we're not keeping track of versions for this. So I've now made two changes here. And if I want to look at the previous versions of this item, if I've noticed on this list this information is wrong, and but I don't know what the old values were, I just want to revert to the previous version. If I select the item and go to the Items tab, I have a version history option here. If I click on that, it's going to show me the previous versions, and it's actually, funnily enough, it's actually going to show me the individual changes that were made. So I've changed the cost price to 190, I've changed the sales price to 210. So I may look at this and say, you know what, actually both of these changes are incorrect. I want to revert back to the original first version that I had. I'll just highlight over the date and time that I have here, click the drop down. I can view the version if I want, so I could look at all the items. I could delete the old version, which I don't want to do, or I can just restore it. It gives me a warning saying I'm about to replace the current version. That's fine, I'll press OK. And you'll see actually what it does is it actually creates a fourth version. Um, so that's actually quite good because you still have versions 2 and 3 here, but I've now reverted back to the same values as version 1. I could delete all the versions here if I want, but that's just not something I want to do. So if I now close that, I can see that my values have been restored. And if I wanted to revert back to version 2 or 3 again, I could just do that as we said here, just restore the version, press OK. So it's very, very powerful, very useful tool, but very important to note that versioning is not enabled by default. You have to go in and activate it yourself if you want versioning. This is done basically to save space in the SharePoint database. You don't want all of these versions piling up and taking tons of space.